Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I will be showing you how I built a pretty simple and straightforward heavy-duty steel table along with the assistance of my good friend Teddy here. So to get started, I'm going to begin laying everything out. This right here piece that I'm cutting is a 3" by 3" by 3/16" inch thick piece of angle iron. As you can see here, I didn't realize that these DeWalt saws, this is a 14" DeWalt saw, that they don't cut 3" on that back side. It will hit that back side of those DeWalt saws. So anyway, I had to go through and cut that. I did decide that it'd be easier to just use a simple little grinder cut-off saw, honestly. It does a pretty good job of cutting through everything. It honestly only takes about, for this piece of angle iron, it only takes about 30 seconds or so to cut through it. Here I'm just doing a quick dry layout of the materials. If you noticed earlier, I made a cut on that saw and I accidentally messed up. I cut that piece there when I shouldn't have. Here again, I'm just doing a simple layout using the angle iron. That right there piece is a 4 by 8 by 3/16" inch thick, just flat, mild steel. Here I am simply just squaring up that saw because I had it on that 45-degree cut. What I'm cutting here is 3" square tubing that was left over from a shop that we just got done building. Here I am tack welding these legs on, trying to make sure that I keep everything square. Something I did deliberately do right here was I moved that angle iron so I could weld around the base of that square tubing. My thinking behind that is to make it a little bit stouter before I weld that angle iron to the sides of that square tubing. Now that I put my dry fit back together, I'm going to start welding those angle iron together to kind of help square everything up. And then I'm going to go around and weld all the legs. You'll notice through this process right here, I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm just going to let you guys view it. But the reason that I kind of moved from leg to leg, around and around, is because I didn't want to heat up that metal too much and cause warping. I'm sure some of you have already noticed, but that one I'm welding right there, that leg, it wasn't quite long enough as these other three were, and so I have a little bit left over, as you can kind of see here in the front of the screen. And I'm going to use some of that 3" angle iron that I have and wrap it around, or place it inside, I should say, of that 3" square tubing. This will kind of help reinforce it, and I will show you that process here in a little bit. Here I'm getting ready to put in a 3" by 3" piece of angle iron that I have left over and put it in the middle. The reason I want to do this is because I'm thinking it's going to help reinforce that table a little bit better, and maybe kind of help prevent bowing or anything like that in the middle. Something you will notice that I only weld the angle iron together. I didn't weld that piece of angle iron to that 3/16 inch flat iron sheet because, again, I don't think it's really necessary, and that angle iron is the one that's holding the majority of the weight. Back to what I was talking about earlier, here's this 3-inch square tubing that I had left over along with those 3-inch angle iron pieces. So I'm just going in and going to help reinforce that to kind of help increase that shear strength on that leg right there. Something I do wish I would have done differently is put that angle iron inside the leg that was already welded to the table right there, and then welded this piece on top of it. I think I would have probably got a better, higher quality weld, but it is what it is. You live and you learn. Here you see I'm just going through kind of doing the final welds. I'm deciding to use my MIG welder now because obviously I'm dealing with a little bit thinner gauge of metal and I just don't want to burn a hole through it. So I believe I used a MIG welder earlier in the process when I put those legs down. I may have used the arc welder, but I may have just turned it down. You just saw me moving that MIG welder around to the side. I'm trying to get it in shade because if anyone's ever used those little guys before, man, in that 105-degree heat, they definitely warm up quickly and they'll stop working on you, trying to cool down a little bit. So I'm trying to protect it the best I can so I can keep welding through this thing. Now that I've got my legs kind of welded up and everything kind of put together as far as the table is concerned, here I'm just cutting that 4-inch flat iron. I'm going to use those as the base for those caster wheels that I purchased and put that on top of that 3-inch square tubing. You can see that I'm using a caster wheel that I've got that I'm going to put on this table kind of as a template. So I'm just using that speed square to walk around with that soapstone, clamping this guy down, and I'm just going to use kind of a quick metal punch here, go through the process of drilling all these guys out. This is exactly why I need a table, because this was kind of a pain. My hardware here for these caster wheels, I did choose to go to the hardware store and get just some higher grade ones. These are grade 5 nuts and bolts. It's not that I didn't trust the bolts that came with the caster wheels, I just felt like I would get a higher quality bolt for this application. The other thing is that I will be bolting these through that piece of 4x3-inch flat iron that I have, and so I want to be able to weld those down to where they obviously don't turn inside, and I can tell you a little bit more about that later, but I'm just going through right now, tightening everything down, getting everything squared up, kind of doing a dry fit again just to see how everything looks. This is what I was talking about earlier about welding 2 of those 4 bolts down on each one of these caster wheels before I went and capped them off. This way hopefully those bolts will last for as long as I've got these wheels, and if I ever need to replace the wheels or anything else, I can simply just undo the nuts, washers, lock washer and everything else and just buy new caster wheels, put them on there and keep moving with things. You can see I keep moving kind of from caster wheel to caster wheel leg because, like I was doing earlier, I don't want to cause too much of that metal to warm up, heat up, warp, anything like that. And plus these right here caster wheels are also kind of made of that hardened plastic, so I'm afraid I'd melt them if I got too ambitious with them. Here I'm going through, and this is kind of an after the after the fact thing. I was building this table and I thought, man, it'd be really neat to have kind of a little shelf or something under it again. Trying to keep this table simple, but also where it's very versatile and usable. So I'm going through and I'm using some 3-inch angle iron that I have left over, and then I also purchased some small, just little 1/2-inch angle iron. My intention is to simply just use that 1/2-inch angle iron lip kind of on like a piece of 7/16" OSB sheet to just kind of help protect that edge. I don't want to have a lip, so if I have to pull something kind of heavy up, I don't want to have to pull it up over that angle iron lip. So I thought this would be kind of a simple and easy solution to that little issue. So here I'm just going through, getting everything kind of squared up, and based off the bottom here, I think I chose roughly around 17 inches from the bottom of the caster wheel up to the top of the OSB, which would be around 15 inches, 16 inches or so from the top of the OSB to the bottom of the actual table right there. So just big enough to put something like a MIG welder or other kind of tools like that under there, but not so big that you're basically just putting it on the ground. Here I am putting together a couple pieces of angle iron I have left over to be able to make that span on the short side. So I'm just simply going through and MIG welding that all together, just grinding it off, try to make it look a little bit cleaner. Here I'm wanting a little additional support on the bottom of that OSB, so I'm just using some of that extra C-purlin that I have left over again from that barn build just a couple months ago. So I'm just going to cut it, fit it within those pieces of angle iron, weld it together, and call it good. So the next day that I was able to get back outside, I got an additional piece of OSB here, cut the corners to account for the 3-inch square tubing legs, and just cut it to size. Now this is where things begin to get a little bit more interesting and challenging. This table is quite heavy. It weighs about 500 pounds, 600 pounds or so. So being able to balance and figure out how to get this thing off the trailer, because that's partly the reason why I welded it on the trailer. Here I was able to use about a 1-inch, 1.5-inch dowel piece of wood I have left over and just kind of roll it off, grab it with those tractor forks and just lift it up. Something I didn't mention earlier, the reason I couldn't scoop up that table on the bottom tier was because of the 1/2-inch angle iron I have on the top side of the 3-inch angle iron. So scooping it from that point would likely just bend or break it off. Here I am moving this table around in real time. Using these 5-inch caster wheels, it moves around really easily with very little effort. Here I'm just going around the edges of the table,
cleaning up some of those welds that I had done previously and just rounding off that corner. Here I'm putting in that piece of OSB and just trying to work it in there. I knew it was going to be tight, but nothing that a hammer can't fix. And here's the final product. I'm going to walk you around it. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Even being built on the back of a 18-foot flatbed trailer, it turned out really well. It does have a little bit of a crown on it, not in this view, but in the previous one, going long ways. But anyway, it come together real well. It moves around really well. It's pretty darn stout, so I'm really happy with it. So I'll be excited to be using it on future projects, and thanks everybody for watching.